What's up everybody, and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. So, what do I have to say about Mass Effect Andromeda? This is certainly one of the most polarizing games that I have played in a very long time. Just for some perspective, I was asked to give a speech this week on the current state of gaming, and as it happens, I brought up the subject of Mass Effect Andromeda, and let me tell you, it was split right down the middle, with people praising the game and other people in a complete uproar that Mass Effect had been ruined. Now, it's really difficult to review a game this size. To its credit, Mass Effect Andromeda is massive, and I don't think anybody has completely got through every single thing that there is to do in this game. I'm clocking in around 50 to 60 hours right now, and I'm still not completely finished, but I played enough of the game to kind of give my official review. You know, as I've been playing this game through these several hours, I've been trying to find a way to encapsulate exactly what I'm feeling when I'm playing Mass Effect Andromeda, and my overall impressions. And you know what, for some reason, and I'm very, flattered by this, I can't find the words to particularly describe it, but I do have one example. I have this person on my social media, and she's a very good looking girl. She's constantly working out, showing pictures of herself, almost half naked in her knickers, in her swimming outfits, and you know what? She's really cute, and that's one of the reasons that she must get 1,000 likes a day. But today, I actually heard her voice, and I realized, wow, the superficial stuff is not everything, and that's how I feel about Mass Effect Andromeda. When we saw the E3 footage, it looked absolutely stunning and beautiful, and very reminiscent of what everybody liked about the original Mass Effect series. And then you play it, and you realize, wow, there's a lot of problems here. But guys, don't get me wrong, and I know that the trend, especially on social media, is to really want to shit on something, and I honestly can't say that. Mass Effect as a whole, and you know, even though it does have a little bit of bumps, and we'll talk about that, is a fantastic game, but we do have to address some issues. But not all hope is lost, because overall, it's a great experience. So guys, make some popcorn, pour yourself some vanilla Coke, and welcome to the official review of Mass Effect Andromeda. Now guys, one of the first things I do have to talk about is definitely the visuals in this game. Now, first of all, what you want to do, because this is a huge issue, I don't know why BioWare keeps doing this, go into the settings and make sure that you turn off that shitty ass grain film, okay? It is going to improve your visuals almost immediately. The other thing that we definitely have to talk about is the animations and the motion captures. Holy shit, didn't anybody look at this? Didn't anybody test this to see if it was high quality? Because it really isn't. Let me tell you something guys, these bobbling googly eyes that we have on the character models are absolutely atrocious, and there is absolutely no excuse for it. It's 2017. BioWare, come on man, step up your game. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to be very fair to this game. I bet you that I was influenced in large part by the fact that I had just played Horizon Zero Dawn, and those captures, those images look absolutely stunning. But no, I can't blame it completely on that, because when you see the animations here, I mean, some of them are just creepy. Now, to its credit, and I'm going to have to disagree with several reviewers here, the character creation models here and the way that you can customize your characters is actually pretty robust. There's a lot of customization, but what good is it if your models are horrendous, okay? It looks like these people fell off the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down. My god! I'm talking about like Frankenstein. You ever been catfished? Every time I look at these models, I feel like I got freaking catfished. Here was another huge problem that I experienced as well. No matter what I did, no matter what permutation I used in order to get the flesh tones right, it never came out right. I mean, these models look like they were irradiated or something, like if they grew up in Chernobyl. It was freaking crazy looking, and it was jarring. And you know what? I even went through several times to create characters. I even turned off my PS4 to see if it was just a glitch, and nope, this thing was just horrible. Also, particularly jarring was the facial animations. I mean, listen, I grew up watching Looney Tunes, Yosemite Sam, the Roadrunner, Tom and Jerry, and that's what they reminded me of. They were so over the top. It's almost like if the animators didn't know what subtle cues were in like human facial expressions. It was freaking scary. I think what really compounded this problem too is that you do have moments of brilliance in terms of the animation here. Some cutscenes look absolutely stunning. I mean, right here is a perfect example of it. it really introduces you to this world, and you're really kind of establishing this new universe for the Mass Effect series, and it looks fantastic. So when you see facial animations and just basic biomechanics look really shitty, I mean, it takes you out of the experience because that's all you're focusing on. The story in Mass Effect Andromeda is actually probably the strongest, and I think that BioWare probably planned ahead for this given the events of Mass Effect 3. Essentially all the species were stranded on Earth, but that is a lot of species to be stranded in one place. The initiative, as they call it, was actually sent out before the end of the events of Mass Effect 3 to find and colonize a new world for the species. So you essentially wake up 600 years later near the constellation of Andromeda. From the character creation menu, you can choose whether or not you want to be a male or female, and you can also choose the level of customization you want in your character. Now, if you just want a quick set and you just want to get in and start playing the game, you can also choose one of the generic models. I don't recommend that you do this as it makes the game less personable, but, you know, the option is there. Now, you guys know how I am. I absolutely love strong female protagonists in my video games, so I decided to go the female route. You play as Sarah Ryder, and essentially what she is she's part of the pathfinding team. What the Pathfinders do is they go out into the galaxy looking for strange alien planets. What they're hoping to do is terraform, colonize, and establish new civilizations for the varying species. And yes, of course, anytime you're trekking around the galaxy trying to find new planets in order to colonize, things don't always go as expected. And that's one of the strengths of this actual title, is that you're not this uber awesome super warrior. You're actually somebody who's still kind of getting their legs, so to speak, in the universe. And when certain things happen, you've got to rise to that challenge, which makes it completely awesome. And this kind of plays up some of the RPG elements that you definitely get in this game. Mass Effect Andromeda is a huge universe. You've got to trek that universe. The great thing about it is there's so much diversity in terms of fauna, life, and dangers that you're going to face. Not only that, but atmospheres change, and there are certain things that you are not acclimatized to, no matter how much you train for it, and that's really one of the strengths of this game. It's so versatile, and you see very unique things. It's pretty impressive given the fact that this game is so huge, that you see such variations in things like orbital distances, changes in cycles, and various other things that just make you more interested in what's going on in the world and planets that you're exploring. So I gotta give BioWare kudos for that. Another really great thing that I like about this title is that it really encourages exploration. And I'm not just talking about going into caverns and various other locations. What I'm talking about is video logs. You actually get to scan things and learn about the planet's history and very, very important details about its minerals and various other things, which is pretty cool. It actually reminds me of the scanning ability that you had on your visor in the Metroid Prime series, which was always fascinating when it told about the untimely demise of the civilization, or even one specific story of somebody or something or a creature that you found while exploring along your journey. Now, this gaming mechanic is not merely academic, and it does serve a vital function. As with previous Mass Effect titles, there are RPG elements, and you'll use this mechanic in order to scan certain things, certain minerals that you're going to use and you're going to need in order for you to upgrade your weapons and armor. Now, one of the aspects of this game that was completely satisfying was definitely the combat. Now, some people have remarked that the combat was dumbed down a little bit for the purposes of appealing to mass audiences. I don't think that was the reason. I think they just learned from previous titles and wanted to have a very visceral experience. It is fast, it is frenetic, the weapons are weighty. I love the sound design here. Guys, you owe it to yourself. If you have some kind of surround sound or some speakers, or definitely a headset that you can use, this is the way to go. It is absolutely satisfying. Another thing that's been incrementally improved in the combat is definitely your teammates. Now, in previous Mass Effect titles, they would do somewhat stupid things, and even though I would try to get a shot off, they would always get in my line of sight. I don't see that happening as much in this version. It does happen, but at least it's been highly improved. Also, one thing I do have to mention, early on in the game, I felt like I wanted to kill my freaking teammates, mostly because the dialogue when they're in combat is so freaking horrible. It's distracting. You just wanted to get them to shut the hell up. There's also one really interesting aspect of this game that I do have to mention because it's pretty unique. Now, as I mentioned before, I did have a few issues with the character creation model, so I actually went back, not going too ahead of myself in the game, and created a new character. The really interesting thing is that depending on what race you choose, it will actually change the dynamics of the rest of the people who are related to you, mostly your father and your twin brother, which is awesome. And I have to give a lot of praise to BioWare for doing that. That's pretty freaking cool. Now here's the deal, guys. This is a BioWare game, so you can't escape the fact that there are so many loading screens here, but to their praise, they make them very interesting, particularly when you're navigating the galaxies, especially the maps of those galaxies. They did this so well. The animations are fluid and they're fantastic. It really reminds me of exploring the galaxy with Carl Sagan, which was a personal favorite of mine when I was growing up, and this just made it really cool. Similar to previous Mass Effect titles, you do use your ship, the Tempest, to explore other worlds from orbit. Let me tell you, it was always so satisfying when my chief officer told me that she found an anomaly and you get to launch your probe. Just awesome. Similar to the scanning mechanic, this is not merely an academic exercise, and a lot of the times what you're doing is you're mining resources to upgrade your characters and to gain experience points. I think one of the most interesting things that I found during these probes is definitely when you find an old derelict space station and you get to read what happened to it. It's freaking awesome. Okay guys, now I do have to talk about some of the aspects of this game that absolutely freaking infuriated me. And one of it is the interface, the menus. Holy shit! It's 2017, BioWare. I don't know if this was an issue before, but I don't remember it being an issue with previous Mass Effect games. But here it is so clumsy and non-intuitive. I mean, there is a menu for a menu for a menu. There are trees within trees, wrapped in an enigma, in a riddle. I mean, it is such a pain in the ass. And here's another thing too. You have to be very careful with the buttons you press. You don't know how many freaking times I was just trying to upgrade a loadout or change some weapons and I ended up leaving orbit. And depending on where you're at, no matter where, you're always going to come back to the freaking launching pad, and then you have to trek your ass all the way back to where you were. It's a pain in the ass. Please, do a patch for this shit. Here's another thing that brought my piss to a boil, and that's deconstructing certain items. I mean, I can't believe this, but why the hell did you do this, BioWare? You have to actually destroy something before you can upgrade to the other thing. What the fuck? I mean, I spent a good part of my game wondering why the hell I couldn't upgrade a certain piece of equipment until I accidentally destroyed something or a lower version of it, and then suddenly it opened up. And finally, these freaking maps. Oh my god. They are so, I mean, these are like the most bare bones schematics that I've ever seen. And lazy as shit. You can't even rotate these things. A lot of times I couldn't tell where the frick I was at in some of these maps, and it took me that much longer to get where I needed to go. Look guys, let's just keep it real. Mass Effect has never been a game known for its awesome vehicle navigation, and I know that it did have some in the original Mass Effect and then the subsequent titles, but they were never really good and not that intuitive, and here, although it's incrementally a little bit better, it still suffers from the same problem, and not just Mass Effect or BioWare, just video games in general, that the controls are always a little bit floaty and non-responsive, and it gets frustrating sometimes. Now don't get me wrong, this control scheme is a lot better than previous titles, but it seemed to me like they were just checking off a box and something that they absolutely needed to include in the game for fanfare and just to appease people that have been using it in the previous Mass Effect titles. But it's nothing too spectacular, guys, so don't expect too much. In terms of the overall characters and dialogue in this game, it's actually pretty good, but it does get a little bit trite sometimes, and sometimes the dialogue is just downright goofy. But again, the game progresses, and what I mean by that is that it starts off very slow and annoying at times, and your companions are just downright stupid. But after maybe 6 or 7 hours into the game, I don't know, something changes, and I think the change in the dialogue has a lot to do with the tone later on in the game. There's a lot more sense of urgency and a lot more sense of importance, which helps the overall game. So guys, it does start off slow, but eventually it becomes more and more satisfying. Guys, the thing about Mass Effect is that it has some enormous shoes to fill. The hype surrounding this game is incredible. And you know what? The expectation is so off the charts. And that may hinder the overall game, and people might not rate it fairly. So I'm just looking at it objectively and some of the things that I found that were really good and definitely some flaws that I saw. So did Mass Effect Andromeda crash and burn? No, absolutely not, because this was a great experience. But did it need a little more time to incubate? Perhaps. but it doesn't mean that it's a bad game by any means. It's actually really fantastic. But you know what? We gotta call things out for what they are, and if there's little glitches and stuff like that that can be improved for the next Mass Effect title, we need to give our feedback on that. We gotta keep them honest, guys. Ultimately, guys, when it comes to any kind of feedback that you can give, you have to remember there is one element to it, and that's the human element. Did you have fun with this title, as I mentioned in the Resident Evil 6 review? Was it something that you really responded to, or something that infuriated you? Maybe it's a mixture of both. Does it mean that it sinks a title? Absolutely not. Does it mean that it can make improvements in the future? Yes, definitely. But it's a very personal thing, guys. Now, our reviews are recommendations of some of the things that we found problematic about a game. But it's up to you to decide what you think of Mass Effect Andromeda. Personally, I really love the experience. Improvements can always be made, but the way this game made me feel was really at the heart of why I wanted to continue playing the game. Now, I may use a very simple metaphor here, but remember that person that I mentioned that was all over my social media and looked good and probably got 1,000 likes? Well, the same thing applies here. Your beauty and your smile and your abs and everything else will get you a seat at my table. But what determines whether or not you stay there is your substance and your mind, and how you make me feel. And that's how I feel about Mass Effect Andromeda. It's pretty, absolutely, but the substance of the game is what really kept me going, and why I'm very excited about what's coming up next for BioWare and the Mass Effect series. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Mass Effect Andromeda. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews.